So good evening. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Giridhar Ramachandran sir, an accomplished educator, experienced designer, and associate dean online learning at XLRI Jamshedpur. Girdhar sir is a Stanford certified life design educator and a practitioner turned academic with over 2 decades of experience across both academic and industry. His remarkable journey includes working with global brands such as Ford, Dell, P&G, Toyota, and IBM, where he led analytics and marketing team that delivered over 100 million in business value. His expertise lies in the intersection of customer experience, analytics, and storytelling with data. And his passion of life design and purposeful pivots has inspired many professionals and learners alike. We are truly honored to have him with us today to share his insights and experiences. Please join me in welcoming Girdhar Ramachandran sir.
Thank you, Rocky.
Thank you, sir.
Do we start?
Yes, I guess it is 7.
Okay. Okay. So, sorry for the hiccup. So, welcome you all to this session. It's something that I really passionately believe in, which is that we should be presenting data in as stories so that we get much better impact from what we do. Okay, so and I'll so the session is very short. We have about 45 minutes. So what I can hope to help to see is just pass on my enthusiasm for this to you and give you broadly some ideas to work with. Beyond that, I don't think we can achieve much, but let's see where it goes. So we should basically looking at how can we turn the insights that we have into impact, and how can we use storytelling as the vehicle for that, right? Essentially, that's the idea behind this. So I want to check with you quickly. Have you ever used have you ever presented data before in any of your in your situations at work or otherwise, and you felt that could have got something better from what you presented? You had a fantastic insight, or you had something that you wanted to share, but the process of presenting probably did not give you that kind of impact that you looked for. Is this something that has ever happened to any of you?
I think yes. I mean, there are scenarios where we have the PPTs and just talking about the data and not much of a storytelling, just raw data and just read it out. So yeah, definitely I've
Yeah, so
faced.
that's something that I went through long back, and I had this very important presentation that I was shipping to a client, a PNG manager in Philippines, and I had done all the analysis, and I had arrived at the findings, and then I made the presentation. I shipped it out to them, and it was like I had sent it out by my midnight, and then I went home, and then I came back next day, hoping to be getting a lot of compliments from my boss. And my boss just wrote a center, had set up note at not my desk and saying, "Let's meet for coffee." So I went to the coffee. I'm hoping that he's going to say nice things about me. But what followed was essentially a huge drilling on how the presentation was really not conveying the effort and the importance of the work that we have done, and how doing things like this can really be very, very detrimental to the whole engagement itself. So that was kind of a wake up call for me. And this is something I don't know how many of you've seen. And but this is, while it looks very humorous here, but it is something that I've seen repeating every now and then in any organization, big or small. No, there is a lot of, sorry. Yeah. So there is a lot of times when we make the presentation or a dashboard with all earnestness, and then we send it out, or look at it the other way. You are in a particular organization, and your team, the data analytics team, sends you a dashboard, and then we say, okay, thanks for the dashboard, but let me know how do I download the data, because and then you go on and do something because you feel what you got is really not what you wanted, right? So we are looking to see how we can avoid this situation. How can we really ensure that the work that we do gets the impact that it deserves, right? So that's the idea in this case. So how do you make this whole, when I say analytics, it's a broadly a word that I want to use for all kind of analysis that we do. It can be AI, ML work, or it can be model basic analysis on Excel, etc. But whatever we do, how do we make that analysis very impactful, right? Now we all know that data gives us from data we get information, from information we get insight gives us decisions, and that helps us make actions, and those actions therefore when delivered will give us value for this, right? But what are we looking at? We want to see if there's something more that can be done. Can this actually get an extra push by adding a data story, right? That's what we are trying to see. Can stories really help us increase the impact of this whole process? And that's what we are trying to see, right? Why do we think stories can help? Now, as humans, all of us love stories, right? You've seen on cave walls long ago, we had carvings etched out, which was basically images of hunters, etc. And then when Twitter came, or the now current X came, we needed only 140 characters to tell something. You had Abhimanyu, or the Amachitra Kada is something that we all loved when we were younger, right? So what people say is that after our basic needs like nourishment, shelter, and companionship are met, stories are what makes us really want the most important thing that we are looking for are actually stories, right? And why stories? Because when you are telling a story, what happens is, supposing I am telling a story to you, Rocky, right? And I am talking about how I went to China, and in China I got lost in some place, and somebody helped me out, and then there was a language barrier that I had to overcome, and then through all of this, I finally was able to get to where I wanted, and so on. When I am presenting this in a story format, what happens is, when we look at this, when we somebody mapped the brain cells of you and me, if I'm going to share the story, what was fantastically seen was that the same parts of the brain lit up for me and for you. So I'm telling the story to you as Rocky, and I'm talking about this. The cells in my brain that light up are the same cells in the brain that light up for you as well. This is called as neurocoupling, right? So the brain lights up the same way for the listener and the storyteller. What does this mean? It means that when I am giving a story to you, I am able to bypass a lot of other aspects of the whole thing, the logical part, the rational part, everything else. I'm connecting with you right away, and that helps me to convey the information in a much better method than by not using that. Right? That's the idea of this whole experiment. The experiment said that when the listener and the storyteller are both in the same thing, the brain cells light up the same way, right? So that's why storytelling is important, because we hear data, but we really feel stories, right? And why storytelling, Vita? Because data does not change behaviors, right? If data was to change behaviors, we'll all be avoiding junk food, exercising daily, not doom scrolling on the phone, and all of that will happen. But then this doesn't happen, right? So we actually end up doing all of those things. And why is that? Because we are all, while we think we are all rational human beings, we are all necessarily not rational human beings. And our amygdala, or the epicenter of emotions, is where a lot of those decision makings happen, right? Now, this is what the hypothesis that people had. So they want to test something. So you want to test if the choices are made by the amygdala already or not, right? So then there's a person called Antonio Damasio who did this experiment. What was the experiment he did? He collected all those people who for some reason ended up having a non-functional amygdala in their head. The brain was functioning, they were all having normal lives, but their amygdala was not working, right? So he went and studied those people and tried to understand how things are for them. Now, what happened was, while they were able to go through their regular day, what was a big problem for them was that they had a very tough time making decisions. So even a simple decision, say for example, like, let's go out as a family to a restaurant to have dinner. Now this simple decision making process became very complex for them because they would go around in loops. Oh, this Chinese is very good, but there is no parking. But this South Indian place is very good, but the wait time is very high. Let's go to this North Indian place. But North Indian place is it's too oily. So they keep going around in loops without making any decisions. So that is what basically was happening when people were not having a functional amygdala. What that means is that the feelings are not just the shady side of reasons. They help us actually make the decisions. The decisions are made via those emotions that we have, right? So if that is the case, we know that numbers have an important story to tell, but they rely on us to give a very convincing voice, right? Because we all love data as consultants, as data scientists, as analysts, as managers. We all love data, and we believe that data should drive decision making, right? But very often, what happens is we are so passionate about that we undermine how the finding actually relates to. We are more interested in conveying what we got, how we got, etc., and less interested in actually presenting how it really solves somebody's problem, right? So data never speaks for itself. When you put a data, I will view this data from my worldview. You will look at the data from your worldview, right? And so if that happens, there is always an opportunity for you to be having no congruence between the two, the presenter and the listener, right? So we'll have our own interpretations, own worldviews. So we need someone to guide us through the data, right? So then what happens therefore is, before we convey our results, when you have some data, when you have some insight saying this is the kind of um, uh, subscriptions that I see for a particular campaign, this is the kind of response that I see for a particular campaign, or these are the kind of people who default for our loans. If I want to say something like that, I should be very clear about what do we want the audience to know, what do we really want them to do, how do you want them to feel about it, what kind of action do they want them to take, right? And very often we fall short in all of these areas. We end up actually telling what, instead of telling what they should know, we end up telling what we actually did, right? And this is not something that's only now, right? This is something that has been happening for ages, I would say. So here is a story of a history lesson when we felt that let data speak for itself. Like whenever you see someone say let the data speak for itself, or let the data do the analysis, let the data come back, etc., that is the sure shot recipe for disaster. Because unless we know what we're looking for, and we know how we are presenting what we're doing, this is really, you can go in circles forever on that. So here is this history lesson that we won't have, right? So this person called Ignaz Semmelweis. This Ignaz Semmelweis was a doctor in Austria in the early 19th century. He was a doctor in Austria, and he was a obstetrician. So he was involved in deliveries, pregnancy. When pregnant mothers went to hospital, he was involved in the delivery process. So he was in one such hospital. In that hospital, there were a lot. There had a maternity ward, and then he was one of the doctors who operated on those pregnant women. Right now, in those days, what was happening in Austria and other parts of Europe also was that there was something called as a they were fighting this big challenge called as a childbed fever. What is childbed fever? Perfectly healthy pregnant women would come to the hospital, deliver the babies, and die. It was a very, very grim situation, and really people did not understand why this was happening. Keep in mind that this was before when people understood germ theory, etc., and all of that. So people really understand why this was happening, right? So Ignace Semmelweis was a doctor in one such hospital, and he was also seeing a huge mortality rate. But what he saw was that the mortality rate among so when a midwife was operating on a pregnant woman, the mortality rate was only 3.9%. But the average for a doctor was 9.9%. Right? This doesn't make sense, right? Doctors are supposed to be more knowledgeable people, more skilled, more aware of the health implications of things, and so on. But still, what he saw was that the midwives had a mortality rate which was less than half of what the doctors had. And this was something really intriguing to Ignace Semmelweis, and then he was trying to solve that problem. When he was trying to solve that problem, what happened was that in around the time he saw, so there was in that hospital there were two units. One was the maternity ward, and another was a place where dead bodies were investigated for autopsies. There's an autopsy unit, and then there was a maternity ward, right? And doctors were operating in both the autopsy unit and the maternity ward. Now, one of his friends actually died in one of the doctors whose friend died while in duty. And when Ignace Semmelweis investigated that particular death, he found it patterns similar to what was happening to the pregnant women who were dying. Right. So he started getting a hypothesis that possibly that the doctors were working on the autopsy unit. When they come to the maternity ward, there's something that they are carrying from the autopsy unit to the maternity ward, and that is the reason why this was happening. So again, remember this was pre-understanding of germ theory, etc. So he was not sure why this is happening. So what he decided to do, he said, "Let me try one thing. I don't want to go into the why this is happening, etc. But let me do one thing. I will introduce a hand washing routine." So introduce the world's first hand washing routine for disinfection, etc. So he created this hand washing routine and he said all doctors who are going to come to do any operation in the maternity ward should first go through this hand washing routine, and then you go ahead and do the deliveries. Right? When he did that, what happened? He introduced the hand washing policy in May. So that time the doctors had the mortality rate of about 12.2%. And from the 12.2%, it came down to 2.2%. But then again, doctors being doctors, they said, why should I be doing all of these things? You don't tell me. If you don't tell me the reason, will not do. And a lot of people refused to do those hand washing. Then he introduced fresh controls and all of that. And for about a few months, they had almost 0% mortality rate. Almost 0% mortality rate for the doctors. Right now, if somebody is doing something like this at your work, he or she is possibly going to get promoted or get a raise or something like that, right? But in this case, what happened is he was dismissed. Now first he was dismissed from the hospital, and subsequently he was debarred from practicing anywhere in Austria. So why did this happen? This happened because this is how he presented the data. Right? He presented the data saying this is what I did. This was reading observation number 1. I did this. Observation 2. I did this, and so on. And when he presented it like this, the doctors did not find it convincing enough because they were still not able to understand and isolate the issue. And they said, okay, we are not agreeing to what you're saying, so we will not going to do this exercise. So he tried a lot more. He published a huge book full of such tables, and he ended up getting debarred from practicing. He ended up spending his last days in a mental asylum in Austria, and ironically died in the same way his friend died when a needle got pricked by accident, and he ended up actually getting those same issues and died on the same. So basically, what was happening was he was very sure that the truth and importance of his work would lead to its ultimate acceptance, and he doesn't have to put any extra effort. So he felt that I have done my job of doing the analysis, and That's more than enough to get the. Hello.
Guys, can you please be on mute?
You can mute them as well, I think, unless there is a.
I'm not sure. Can I don't have it.
Shubham Mohapatra, can you mute yourself?
Shubham? I think he's not.
Yeah, the admin can probably try host. Can do that.
Priya, if you're available.
Okay, so let's see how it goes. I'll try to outvoice that person and see if that works. So essentially, that's what happened to Semelvi. So he had a very powerful insight, right? Such a powerful insight that it actually saved people's lives. But even that could not go through because he was not able to present it in a way that could be understood by the doctors, right? So now the question is storytelling really the most powerful tool at all, and does it add significant value, right? So we then on one, so we will get to another story, and we'll see if this is helping us to get that right. So there is this another incident that happened. It's called the significant object study. There's a person called Rob Walker. He was a New York Times journalist, and he did a study called a significant object study. You can look that up on internet. It is, you can see the findings of that study. But essentially, what he did was that he bought 200 objects on eBay, and these are all very mundane objects, everyday objects. Like for example, a paperweight, a pen, some masthead, a cup, those kind of things. These are all the objects that he bought on eBay. Right? He bought these objects on eBay, and then what he did, he actually picked up 200 writers, story writers, and assigned one object to each person. Say if Karthik is one story writer, he'll get one particular object and say you have to write a story about this particular object, right? And so he got 200. So there are 200 objects, 200 stories were found. Now after he got the stories done, he put those objects back on eBay along with this story as a description, right? So earlier it was just a paperweight. Now the paperweight had a story behind it, right? Now my question is, would you expect a change in the value of those objects?
Yes, we can expect a change in the
How
value.
much do you think, Sanjana, it can be?
As per my experience as a leading Indian citizen, people here buy stories more than anything. So it can expect 60-70% minimum.
Increase, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this horse masthead, he bought it at 99 cents and he sold it at $62. What's the increase? 6,200 times, right? So, sorry, 62 times, 6,200%, right? So the whole thing he bought at all the 200 objects, he bought at $129 and he sold them at $8,000. Right? So what changed between what he had earlier and what he had now? There was a paperweight. That paperweight now had a story. There was a horse masthead, and now this masthead had a story. Right? That's the only difference that was there between the two of them. Nothing else changed materially for them, but still now they get it added more value. Right? So, and similarly, there is another experiment. Right? So this is an experiment that was done by Carnegie Mellon for the charity called Save the Children. Right? What did they do? They called students in the university and asked them to take part in a survey. So the students were randomly picked and took part in a survey about IT usage or something like that. And at the end of the survey, once you finish the survey, they were given an envelope. There were two kinds of envelopes that were given. One envelope had five $1 bills and a big, nice brochure kind of a poster kind of a paper, sheet, A4 sheet, which said how Save the Children was really doing a lot of important work in Africa, how Africa has a lot of children in having going through malnutrition, and then there is so much need for funds, and how what are the things that they have done in Africa till now to address malnutrition, and a lot of those things. Very good, impressive facts that were shared, and it was a nice one pager that was made. Another set of students also got an envelope, and in that envelope they had five $1 bills and a picture of a girl called Rokia and her story. This Rokia is coming from a village in Africa, and thanks to the money that we get collecting to save the children, she is now able to go to school. She is now well fed, and this is the change that we want for other children in Africa, right? So when they studied this thing, the stats version, which is the page that had one page, on an average got $1.14, which means basically in each situation, the students were asked, will they be interested in giving some money for charity, right, to Save the Children. The one which had the facts version, average charity that they got was $1.14, while the one which had the picture of Rokia had an average $2.38, right? So essentially, what I am trying to say is that on one side, we have an insight which is so powerful that it actually literally saved lives, and that was not able to find a good reception because it was not presented in a very good manner, or presented in a way it could get impact. But on the other side, we have something as mundane as a paperweight finding a significant impact, improvement in its value because of a story being attached to it, right? So that is what we are saying, that okay, possibly, therefore, using storytelling can possibly help us in getting across our impact that we want from the data that we are going to present, right? Now, having said that, how do we really do this? What are the elements involved in any data story? The first thing that we want to do in any data story is to be able to find the main point that we want to share, right? Very often what happens is when we do the analysis in the data, there will be a lot of things that will come out. For example, if I am going to do an exercise on looking at what are the different segments that exist for, say, hair color in India, right? And then supposing I get five different segments that are there, or that are possible there for hair color in India. Now, the each of these segments can be similar or marginally different on many aspects, like say price, the kind of people who use it, the geographies where they are doing well, etc., and all of those things. But there will be a handful of information where you can see a clear picture emerge across the different five segments, right? There seems to be a very clear segment one which is clearly value for money. There is one segment which is clearly looking for premium bands, and there is one segment which is clearly looking for experience, and then there is one segment which is clearly looking for willing to try all that is possible. So you can find a situation where there will be across many different points, there will be few points that really help us understand a clear difference across the segments. Now, the important thing when we present data is to remove all the other distracting pieces and focus our attention, focus the audience attention on the main story, right? How do we know what is the main point? To know what is the main point, what we suggest is to use something called as a bus mnemonic. Is it big? Is it useful? Is it surprising? Right? Well, if you use this bus mnemonic, you can be fairly sure that you will be able to hit the right note, right? What is big? Is it sufficiently large? And is it something that really helps us? Is this insight going to help us with our objectives, right? And is it surprising? Is it something that we did not know earlier, right? So look at this example, right? There are twice as many restaurants in New York City than any other city. Now, this is a very big insight. It is a very useful insight, but it is not surprising because the density in New York City is so high that it is very likely that you are going to be able to see twice as many restaurants. The next one, for example, right? Sales increased in every region except our largest branch. Now, which dipped by 0.1%. Now it is useful, it is surprising, but it is not big because the margin is so low, right? So when we are going through the data, when you are deciding to present data, use some of these filters to figure out which ones to not unnecessarily present and which ones to highlight in your presentation, so that we get the impact, we get the people to notice what we are saying, and we get them to act on it. Okay, so that's the main point. The next one that we want to look at is how are we explaining that thing? How are we bringing that explanatory focus in that particular visual, in that particular chart, on that particular slide, and so on, right? So this on the left hand side is a data presented in bar graph of tickets coming into a particular customer service group, right? So there are tickets that are coming in and the tickets getting resolved. So ticket is received and ticket is processed, right? The blue represents all those that are volume of how much they received, and the red represents how much they processed. Now the team which was in this particular division, they wanted to present this particular thing to management to get a certain buy-in for action. Now I want you to look at this particular chart and tell me what is it that they wanted, or what is the chart telling you?
I think it is a chart which is talking about some tickets that they have received and the volume that they have processed against those tickets.
Beyond that, what? So that's okay. So what can you infer from the chart?
More of a volume versus processed for the entire year.
Correct. And then what is it that they want to achieve by showing this particular chart? Are you seeing a pattern?
Yeah, definitely there is a pattern.
What is the pattern?
It's an up and down kind of a chart. I mean,
yeah, that's obviously it's up and down. Basically, what is it happening is that if you look at it very closely, um, they received 160, they processed 160. They received 184, they processed 184. They received 241, they processed 237. So the number of things that they received and number that they processed, right? The
right.
gap, you can see the gaps are very, very less, right? But then from here you see the gaps increasing. Right? They received 202, they processed 156. They received 160, they processed 126, 139, 104, and so on. See, so what is happening is that at some point in time, they are starting to not able to really process all that they are receiving, right? So this is what they wanted to show, but it's, as you can see, it's something not easy to infer from this particular chart. But if I look at something like this, right? Now, till May, there is no difference. After May, there is a growing difference between what they have been processed and what they are receiving. And why is this happening? Because in May, 2 people quit. Now, because 2 people quit, there is the load is now spread out on a smaller group of people, and because it's a smaller group of people, they're not able to catch up to the demand, right? And now you're seeing the gap, and so if the management needs to reduce this gap, then we need to recruit more people, or find alternatives. So now you can see that there is a huge, clear explanation of what is happening, which immediately helps the management to understand what needs to be done to take action. Is it making sense?
Absolutely.
So this explanatory focus is also something that we really need, right? And the next one is what we call as a dramatic element, right? So we had looked at the Semmelweis story, the doctor story. According to you, what could be something different that they could have done? What could have Semmelweis done differently so that he got the impact, he got people to follow the practice, he ensured that there are lesser deaths happening because of that?
Maybe he could have, tried to explain them why hand wash is important.
So he does not know why hand wash is important. He just saw that a hand wash is helping save lives. He does not know why it is important. Remember again that he did not know about germs, etc., and all of that. Yeah, but he could have his friend's story. But how do we know that the friend died because of not having hand wash? Right. So I want you to push yourself to understand that this is a situation where logic did not work with the doctors. They were not sure that there is any isolated reason why this is to be done, but therefore, and that's the reason why they did not want to do the hand wash, right? If that is the case, what could he have done to make them own the problem more than what they were doing right now? So what he could have done was he could have made the loss put a story to that loss, right? Mary, 32 years old, she is perfectly healthy when she came to the hospital, but then she ended up delivering and dying. So the kid now does not have a mother, whereas she could have had a mother otherwise, right? Or so many mothers are not no longer there because we could not ensure some things happen. So when you make those things, make those stories real, right? Like the Rokia situation, right? Build one specific person, Rokia, right? Similarly, one Mary who came from this, etc. So then you start relating to that problem much more than earlier. Then I, as a doctor, I start owning that problem myself as well and say, okay, if this is just a hand wash thing that I need to do, let me do it, right? Let me do it and let's see if that can save the lady, right? So that is something that we should look for when we are building and presenting our data, right? What is a dramatic element that we can add, right? And finally, what are the visual anchors that we can use? Like which chart really helps best? What combinations of charts and visuals will really help so that we can really present it comes out on its own, right? Which how it comes out on its own without me telling that these are the things that I need to do, like the FT in the ticket processing thing, right? These are the elements of a data story, right? These we have these elements, then you generally should have a fairly good opportunity to present something which really has the impact, right? Now, so basically, if you look at it as a framework that we want, what is the goal that we want to achieve? Do we want people to know about what's happening? Do you want people to persuade? Do you want you to persuade them to make an action? Who is the audience who is talking to? Are they CFOs? Are they CMOs? Are they product managers? Each will look at it very differently, right? And what is the key message that you want to give to that particular audience? And how will you capture that audience attentions of the audience, right? These are the 4 things that we want to keep in mind while we build that particular slide or the dashboard or anything, right? That's what we are looking to do, right? So what can come in the way of a good visualization? Now we can do all that we want, but we can possibly still not get something, right? Now I want you to look at this particular visual. What do you see here?
The rose.
Rose, right? Very clear. Now I want you to help me find a dolphin in that rose. How many of you are able to find a dolphin in the rose? Thumbs up.
While looking at the image, I couldn't.
Yes, yes. If we zoom it, we can see dolphin in the road.
Do we?
Very good,
No, it's
Sanjana.
a dark red one,
Ah,
I think.
sorry.
It's the dark red one
Okay.
at the top.
Okay. So some of you, a couple of you have got it. Now I'm going to show.
Oh, yes. I've got it too.
I also find.
Right. Now you got it.
Yes.
Right. Now you've got this thing. Right. Now, can you unsee the dolphin now?
We can. Yeah, I can.
We cannot, right? It is stuck in our head.
Yeah.
Now the dolphin will always be there in this rose, isn't it?
True.
So that is exactly what we call in storytelling as the curse of knowledge. What is the curse of knowledge? When I, as an analyst or as a consultant or as a person working on the data, I am presenting. I know everything about this particular data. And if I am somebody who is in supply chain and I am presenting to somebody in finance, right? I will have to present to them in at the level at which they are. If I present at the level at which I am, what happens is they zone out and you lose attention. Right. So this is a big issue in many dashboards, many slides that we see. We present in a language that we understand, and the person is listening speaks a different language or knows much lesser than us. So then we end up having a lot of issues of loss in translation or loss of information. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk about is generally when we are looking at data, there are two things that happen. One is called what I call a story finding, where I'm trying to find the insights in the data. I have a big data set. And I want to try what I'm being told to find all particular insights from the particular data set. So I do a lot of exploration using visualization, etc. And then I'm trying to find something, right? The other thing is I have found everything. Now I'm trying to tell the story. Story finding is one thing, storytelling is another, right? And what often happens is that we mix these two. We end up using these when you're actually trying to do storytelling, right? And I'm trying to do a storytelling, I need to use to really fix on what is it that I want to present and not go through all of the things that I did in particular thing. So if I do that, then what happens is this is what happens, right? We present almost all of the things that we looked at, and because of that, the slide or the chart or the dashboard or everything becomes so difficult to use that people stop using it, right? So that is what we want to eliminate. We want to eliminate the situation where we don't present data which is not of any use. More data is not necessarily more insights, right? And that's what we want to ensure, that we extract and present that particular narrative, that data which supports the narrative that we want them to understand. So how do we do that? There are a few rules of engagement. Quickly, so the first thing is understand the cognitive perception. Second is eliminate visual clutter, and choose an appropriate display mechanism. Broadly, these three things is what we want to look at, and we'll do it very quickly. We'll go through all of them. So understand cognitive perception, which means that I want to leverage the strengths of the brain and avoid the issues that I can have when I avoid the obstacles in terms of perception as well, right? So I want to leverage the strengths and also ensure that I don't do things which create blocks in my brain, right? So I want you to look at this. I am showing an image on the left. I'm going to flash an image on the right very briefly, and I want you to tell me what was different between this image and the other image. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here it is. What was different between this image and what I showed?
The other image has a red ball.
Had a
One
red
red
ball.
ball.
Very good, very good. Now we had this, right? Now let's go to this one. I have this here. Again, I am to show one more. What was the difference?
Nothing flashed. Okay. There was
What
one
was
A red
round.
circle.
one was a
Circle
red
missing.
circle. One was a red circle, right? And others are all red squares.
Squares.
Correct? Now let us go to this one. Are we getting better at it? What is the difference?
When red are there, but places are random.
Sorry?
Places are random for the square and the circles.
That is
One
true.
red
What is the
ball.
difference between these two?
One red ball.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
have one red ball here, which is different from the blue ball, right? So what is happening now between what? So the earlier two images, you were able to find the spot the difference very easily, but when it came here, you were not able to spot it as easily as the earlier. What happened? Why?
The data was complex.
Okay. So what is happening is you are looking at two attributes of a particular thing. One is a shape, other is color, right? In the earlier two instances, what happened? There is only shape was changing here, right? So, and then here color was changing. There's only one attribute of the image or of the object that changed at a time. But when it came here, what happened? The shape and the color changed. So what is happening is the brain cannot process these two things at a time quickly. That's why it's called pre-attentive attributes. You would automatically look when the brain automatically looks for a change, looks for a difference. It looks on one attribute at a time, right? Now here what we are seeing is we are seeing more than one attribute here difference. So then it's not so easily intuitive enough for the eye to notice, right? So these are all called as pre-attentive attributes, right? So it is either a length or it is a size. It can be bold. It can be slanting. It can be clustered. So these are all. So one item, if you change, it is able to notice it and show the difference. So that is able to help you understand the difference. How do you use this? Use it something like this. So here is something like annual customer survey review, annual customer survey results overview. Right. This is something that I have. Now, just making a small change here, right, makes it much more much more richer a slide than what it was earlier, right? I can quickly say, depending on what I want to highlight. If I want to highlight the most important dimensions that were working for us, then I will color code price and convenience. If I want to use and say the least important, the ones that were the bottommost in our dimensions, then I will color code relationship and brand. So just changing one aspect at a time enhances the ability of the individual to understand and comprehend this particular data, right? That's how we pick the story, pick the data, and so on, right? Now I'll again flash a date. I will again show an image. I want you to see, I want you to go away from the screen and look at it. Go away from the screen for a minute and then look at the image and tell me where are your eyes drawn first? Okay. I wanted to go away from the screen and then come back and tell me where do you see the eye, where your eye is drawn. Okay. Where do you see it?
Stop.
The stop, right? Very, very clear. You can see the stop. Here.
You're the sun.
The
Because
sun.
of the
Rising sun.
wavelength.
Yeah. Here.
Same.
I can see the garage sale. I can see the garage sale first. Garage sale.
Which garage sale?
The back one I can.
This one here.
Perennial
Or
sale.
Yeah.
Perennial sale.
so some of us got perennial sale, some of us got garage sale, somebody. So what is happening is when you are moving your head and coming back, we are not able to get to one particular thing, right? So again, look at this. Which one do you get first?
Blue walls.
Blue.
Blue, light blue, dark blue,
Light blue.
Dark blue.
dark blue. See, and some got yellow. But how it is here? The moment you come back, you look at a red, right?
The red walls.
Right. So that is a big test on where you want, how you want to present your data. What so you should be the when I this is called the eyes away from the slide test. Right? When I go away and come back, which position, what do I get, and that's so if I do this, if I build the slide or the dashboard and do this exercise, and when you come back you're not able to see the main insight being coming out on this, then it means that you need to be moving that thing around. Is it clear? If I'm building this particular slide or a chart or anything, and then I'm going and coming back, if I'm not getting the insight that I want to get, that I want to want people to get from this, that means the people who are going to view this will also not get it, right? So which means then I have to be changing the order in which I am presenting the data so that I am able to get people's attention. I wanted to go to the next slide, and I wanted to tell me how you are seeing it. Okay. Watch this please very closely. What does it mean?
First, we saw the larger front, then the smaller one, and the much smaller one.
So first we
Right.
read the font with a bright background.
Yeah. This is called as a visual hierarchy, right? You go, this is the order in which you will actually navigate any page. So if supposing you kept insights here saying sales has been stagnant for the last 3 years because of this, and then put a chart here, and then so you will need to know exactly where you need to put those elements so that you can really get that information. So you have to this visual hierarchy, left to right, top to bottom, inside size to smaller, bigger size to the higher size, etc. These are all things that will ensure that you are presenting in a way everybody consumes information. This is why it's called as cognitive perception. We want to understand and leverage the strengths of the brain and do things and don't do things which will confuse the brain, right? So if we keep these principles in mind and present the data, then people who are receiving the attention will also do the same way as how you are doing it as well, right? So next thing which we want to look at is, once we know that we have to understood the cognitive perception, I know like how to present it, etc. The next thing I want to do is to eliminate the visual clutter, right? What is visual clutter? Something like this. So this was the map that the native they put together in trying to help them understand how to make their tactical for the war, right? So by the time we would have understood the slide, we would have won the war. Essentially, it's basically saying that how cluttered this one is, right? So we want to eliminate clutter. We want to eliminate clutter so that people go for the right one. Let us quickly look at this particular thing, right? If this is the chart that you have, what are the things that you will do to ensure that you remove clutter? What are some things that you would do to remove clutter here? So you will probably remove grid lines and look at the percentages, look and see, do you want to really keep 14.3, 29.8, or do you want to show something lesser? How do you want to present the days? How do you want to look at showing the and so this is where we are. And if you want to go somewhere like this, look at the difference between the two, right? Here we have, and here we have. Now this, when we present, quickly helps somebody to cut to the chase and find out what we need to do. What's happening in the weekend seems to be different from what is happening in the weekdays. And then they are able to immediately get to action on this. So this removing the clutter is a very important aspect. Keep on decluttering it. Keep on removing what we don't think is essential. A lot of times what happens is that we decorate the chart a lot more than what is needed, and at the end of it, it becomes unreadable for most of us, or it reduces the utility of that particular. And people use a lot of fancy things. Most of the times, a bar chart and a line chart will do all the work that needs to be done, right? But we don't stop there. We want to try fancy stuff, and that's when we end up reducing the utility of that particular output, right? Then you have something called as appropriate display mechanism, which is essentially knowing which charts to use when. When do you use a bar chart? When do you use a line chart? When do you use a map? When do you use a histogram? When do you use a scatter plot? And when do you use a stack? I don't have time right now. Otherwise, this is something that I could have shared with you in terms of what makes most sense, right? So that's what I had till now. I think we've already overshot. So if there are questions, we can go through the questions and let me know what made sense, what did not make sense.
Can you please show the last slide where you were showing the charts here? Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? This is an art that comes only with practice. You need to keep practicing, keep taking up old charts of yours or old dashboards of yours, and working on it, and keeping on trying different things. And that's all. It's basically like any other muscle building activity that we do for our own health, right? This is another muscle building that we need to. Yes, Rocky, you had a question.
I don't have a question, but then just wanted to, this was pretty much very much helpful, I would say, because definitely after this session, I want to go back to my PPTs and, look for the clusters that I can remove and present the data probably this month. So, yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Sure. Anything else? Any other questions? Any questions? Did it help? Did it not help?
Definitely helpful.
Should I cold call? No. Okay. I'm just joking. Yeah. So
if there's no other question, I just.
Hello.
Yes, Amol.
Yes, sir. I want to know how to do storytelling with computer vision project. Can you help highlight on that, please?
I didn't get your question.
Like computer vision, like when we have some images mostly, when we don't have graph, but sometimes the computer vision project has the images. So can you just highlight us that how can storytelling make a part of it?
So it is a function of what the insight that you want to share, right? So the insight, so that time a lot of the work will be done by how you present overlay text on a lot of these vision things, right? So you want to show, okay, you can probably show a certain image and then overlay a text saying this is what we see as defects per car, or I don't know what context you're using on computer vision, or you could show before after, or you could show essentially. I think when we are presenting images on the on as an output, we should keep in mind what is the objective that we are using, that we are having to present these outputs. If the objective is generally to say, this is the it is like a defect diagnosis kind of a thing, or it is a quality assessment kind of a thing, whatever it is. I think when it comes to computer vision images based data, I think uh, overlaying text very judiciously will probably help you. So one of my earlier bosses used to say is that, when a good test of whether your whole thing is a story is your head. If you just kept the headlines, if somebody just read the headlines of your slide deck, if they can make some inference out of this, then it means you're good to go. So first, write the headline and explain just the headline using the data, using the charts or the images. And then if the headlines themselves form a story, then I think you are good. I think that's probably what we can think of in that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, you mentioned two measures, that was the sales versus profit scatter plot.
Correct.
So do you have any example how it looks and all in a scatter plot?
A scatter plot is basically like this, right? So it'll be like this. If I have something like this, right? This is sales and this is profit, right? So for a particular sales, what is the profit? So there will be two columns, right? So for each sales data, there will be a profit data, and so on. So there will be like this. So if you find something like this, what it implies is there's a linearity between these two. It is not always necessary that it needs to be a linear relationship between sales and profit. Sometimes it can be non-linear also. It can go like this, or down. Right? That's a scatter plot. So it's an XY map, right? So see, if X is sales and Y is profit, your X1, Y1, X2, Y2, X3, Y3, X3, and so on. You keep plotting them, and you look at how things are scattered in the particular XY plane, and then you infer something saying, okay, they seem to be related to each other or unrelated to each other. Supposing it is completely random and so on, and it means sales and profit don't seem to be having a relationship.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
So as we are talking about data and storytelling, maybe it's an out-of-box question, but then is there a way, for example, if we are presenting something and suddenly you felt that probably the crowd is not with you, is there a way you can, get them back to the presentation and the story, and to
A good way to do that is actually uh, having 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 them answer a question or ask. So there are, so you ensure that they are in on and in sync with you, which means that then they ask this question, that what do you. So for example, in this case, right, so I could have just shown all of them together, right? Instead, I am going to say, okay, what do you think will happen? Then you are saying something, then I'm saying, yeah, this is possible, and so on. So those are essentially presentation methods where we say, okay, we try to ensure that people don't zone out, especially now then people have attention spans are reducing for everybody. It's important to keep something in almost every 3-4 slides that people are able to connect. And the most important thing, Rocky, is that they will stay connected if it is something of value to them. Right?
Yes.
And very often what happens is that the way the presentation happens, the audience is not able to quickly see any value, so they take the automatic alternative of zoning out, right? So if we are very clear, if we have done enough preparation in advance, and we are able to know what exactly the audience is looking for, who the audience is, etc., then a lot of that work that we do in ensuring that is customized will reduce a lot of those issues. And after that, then the next level is actually in having it interactive, so that there is no drop in attention.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
Then thank you so much, sir, for sharing such enriching insights and perspective with us today. Your session was truly broadened and understanding how data, empathy, and creativity comes together to design meaningful experiences both in business and life. Your journey and reflections have been deeply inspiring, and we are really grateful for your time and thought you invested in engaging with our learners. On behalf of the entire team and participants, we extend our heartfelt thanks to you for joining us and making this session truly impactful. We are looking forward to staying connected, and thank you so much again for this beautiful session today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, if at any point in time any of you have any questions, Guru knows how to reach me. So I think that's an easy way to check me as well. Yeah. Thank you, and all the best for what you're
Thank
looking
you
to.
so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.